Recently, I watched this debate about whether feminism has gone too far. And one very funny argument was made by this woman about why women in the 1950s were actually more miserable than they are now. She uses the TV series Mad Men as an example. She literally picked one of the worst possible examples of a 1950s husband to make her point about women's happiness in 1950s marriages. I'm going to play that clip now, and I'm going to tell you why she's wrong afterwards.
It's not.
Before we even get into the clip, I have to come correct and say that, like, theoretically, Don Draper and what was her name? Betty Draper, they were married in the 1950s, but the show Mad Men starts in 1960 or 1961. So this is not even a married couple from the 60s that this expert at the panel is about to educate us on. So keep that in mind.
It's not that women were so happy and fulfilled in the 1950s because their husbands would go to work. You know, Don Draper would go off into the city. He would have a fulfilling career. Then he would sleep with any number of women and come home to his wife who knew he was having affairs, who could sense it, who could vibe it, who could smell the perfume, and had to just put up with it until she couldn't any longer.
Now, while it is of course not a great thing that your husband is cheating on you all the time, she is literally using a top 1% guy in terms of attractiveness as an example from a fictional story. She also forgot to mention that the guy had a very traumatic childhood and that his coping mechanism is basically being an alcoholic and being a sex addict. The guy is actually very unhappy and is stuck in his own self-destructive patterns, which makes him ruin every relationship he has, including the one with his children. This is obviously not the average guy she's talking about, and his wife is not the average woman. She was a literal model before she married him and became a housewife. So I don't really think you can compare your average 1950s couple to this couple. And by the way, the series actually plays in the 60s and not in the 1950s, so that's another detail that she missed. I mean, your average couple in the 1950s probably look more like this. But this woman talks about it as if it's the most normal situation ever for a 1950s couple in America.
Another thing that needs to be called out that you can on why you can't just swap in a couple from the 60s and say, oh, this is representative of women in the 50s is because the 60s are not the same as the 50s. In 1960, the FDA approved the first birth control pill. So right there, everything that happened after 1960 as far as women is concerned is different than everything that ever happened to women prior to that, including the 1950s. So I don't know who let this woman on the panel. I mean, I would think that before this conversation started, she knew what they were. I mean, she's starting the conversation, so she knows what she wants to talk about. And in the same breath, she's saying the 1950s and Mad Men. And it's just like, what? Who let this woman in? Right there, I'm not going to be able to take anything you say seriously because your prime example is not correct. That's crazy. That's wild. Who let that woman on the panel there? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And you can even click that notification bell so that you never miss a beat.